and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. Today I have the Liptons back, and we are pretty much one in the same in that all we really want to do is bring you the best help that we can in a way that isn't really personalized, because we can't do that. Like, unless you're our client, that isn't something we do. But our goal is to help you in some way to unlearn all the bullshit, because we were talking about this in a business sense just before, but a lot of the time it feels like shit when it feels like nothing's moving. Because when you're in the working phase, when you're in the planning phase, like, even think about this when you're doing anything for your life. When you're planning, there is no output to be seen. There is nothing that is getting done. So it feels like a waste of time. So then you stop doing that planning so you can actually make physical work. So you can actually say you did something, but because you didn't plan it, you're wasting a lot more time doing the physical doing just because you're not doing the right thing. So yes, you need to embrace the suck. You need to embrace the unlearning first, because if you bring all your old beliefs into a whole new approach, you're never going to see the changes you want, because you're going to keep reverting back to the same mentality. Like, for example, when someone starts, I hate saying reverse diet, but when we say reverse diet, we mean jumping to maintenance. We do not mean tottering up your food little by little, because otherwise you're going to break yourself. No. When we bring you up to living in maintenance, you're not meant to just say 1 week after, so when we start the fat loss phase, like, we get it. It's hard. It's hard to do that kind of stuff. And we were talking about the rooster that went off next door, and I didn't even pay attention. Like, I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. I'm like, oh, right, that rooster. Because I've been living with this rooster next door to me for so long, I don't even pay attention to it. And that's the thing. Like, it's something that annoys the fuck out of you when it's something new to you. But when it's something that you've been doing for a while, it's something that just that isn't just like a thing to you anymore. And that's the same with your nutrition. That's the same with your fitness. But you need to make it part of your lifestyle to have that sort of ease. When people say, how do you do that? I don't know, I just do. It's easy for me. Like, that's the thing. You make it easy for you by living in that state. And I can't believe I made those two analogies, but I thank Sarah for bringing up both of those, and Kenny for mentioning the rooster as well. It's just like, yep, this is it. So we're going to take this away, talking about things that we, us three, want all of you guys, our clients, anyone listening to this, to know about why you're not supposed to diet forever, and why you really don't have to eat such little calories to see results.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's funny. I just want to touch one point too, is that with learning new things, if you have a goal in mind, like, this is just my I guess personal view on it, but when you have a goal in mind and you haven't reached that goal yet, and you've been doing things to reach that goal, and for whatever reason you feel like you're running in a hamster wheel, and you come across something that is potentially new knowledge, and you are closed off to that new knowledge because you are stuck in the belief that what you're currently doing is going to get you to your goal. For me, if I haven't reached my goal yet, then that means one of two things. For me, it could mean that my actions aren't actually in alignment with where I want to be, or two, I'm doing something wrong, and I do need to figure out what I need to do. So, for example, your actions may be correct and they're going the right path, but there's just a little bit of modification to get you fully to that end goal. Or, you could be doing something just flat out wrong, which, I think all of us have done that at some point of our lives, especially in the gym or just in nutrition or whatever it may be. And, like Ruby had said, being in that position where you are frustrated, you are mad or upset, not sure what's going on, why you're not achieving that goal, is a good place to be. Even though it sucks, it's a great place to be, because it's going to teach you very valuable lessons, but you have to be open to learning those lessons. Otherwise, you're going to continue doing the wrong things and continue to be frustrated. So yeah, hopefully what we talk about is going to help you guys out quite a bit.
Yeah. Absolutely. I wanted to go back to something that Ruby had said too, in terms of like, well, how is it that you can go to the gym every day or hit your macros or nutrition every day? Like, why is, and you said, well, it's just part of my life. And, it took years and years of consistency for all of us to get to that point. You want to create habits of the person that you want to be, not the person you were, because your current habits got you to where you are right now. And the habits that you're going to build are going to get you to who you want to be, right? So what are those habits that that person has? So if you look at Ruby, right, she nails her nutrition, she nails going to the gym. Like if she's someone that you look up to, like what habits and what attributes does she have that you want? And you should emulate those things and build consistency upon those, so that one day you can look back and think, I can't imagine my life without working out now. I can't imagine my life without eating, nutrient dense foods or really taking care of what it is that I'm putting into my body. It feels foreign to not have those things. So building consistency is very much a part of this, on top of what everything else that we're going to talk about in terms of like caloric deficit and training and all of those things. But building consistency is the foundation and the foundation to getting to where you want to be. And you can't skip that part. And the consistency phase it's hard. It is absolutely difficult.
If you know that reel on Instagram, the trend that goes, can we skip to the good part? It doesn't really work that way. Well, it's kind of the same thing. And just because of something Sarah said, I want to actually talk about what is it that you would want to look up to. If like, because I have a lot of people that say, how do you do all that? Like, my amazing form, the way that I hold a front loaded barbell while I'm doing a Bulgarian split squat. It's just like, it is that practice. It's that consistency over time. But the things that I think about is, I know how it makes me feel. I know how doing the opposite or the alternative makes me feel. Which do I prefer? Like, it's not just about being a freaking robot 24/7. Like, I don't see any benefit to just eating some extravagant meal unless it brings meaning to me. So I don't do it. I don't sacrifice one of my meals for a slice of pizza. I won't sacrifice one of my meals for an Easter bunny. But if there was a meal where I'm having a date with someone, or I'm having a social event that means something to me, then that is still a picture of health, because health includes your social health. That is making me socially healthy. If I'm doing it with no real reason, and this is also where you have to kind of pick apart what happens every single weekend. If you're seeing the same friends every single weekend, that's not a social health thing. That's you making excuses as to why you can't stick to your plan every single weekend, which is why you can't stick to your results. So you need to make some sacrifices if you want to see results. But there are times where you want to just not have to be 100% doing what you usually do. And when I say 100%, I usually mean 80%, because there's no such thing as being perfect. But you want to do the right thing most of the time. And that's usually my goal, which is usually most of the time, because like I find joy in what I do because it makes me feel good, because it allows me to perform, to recover, and to be my best self. But if I want to go out and get some Chipotle just because you guys are from America and that's what you get. But over here, if you want to get some friggin' Guzman and Gomez, however it's pronounced, you can still get that and you can still enjoy that without thinking, okay, what do I have to sacrifice now? How am I going to punish myself now? No, it's just one day. That has no impact on anything. Which is what we're going to talk about as well, anything that you have like that has much less of a ripple when you have a lot more muscle mass, when you have a longer training history, when you have a longer bank account record of every single rent payment that you paid. I like this analogy. I really just thought of it. Every single rent analogy and every single meal input, which is a deposit that you have put into the bank, you have a lot more to then spend.
Yeah, that was a really good analogy, actually. That was really, really great. It is. I love that, because, that ripple that you're referring to, when you're eating 1,200 calories and you go out and you decide you've been doing that for 2 months, and you go out and you decide, I'm just going to go in and I'm going to binge because I've been restricted for so long. That's going to have much more of an impact on you than had you just been consistent at a higher caloric intake with less restriction. Because like Ruby said, like you are depositing, food and fuel into your body. You're working on building up that basal metabolic rate. You're working on building that muscle. You have more calories that you're burning at rest because you have more muscle mass. Those are all very important things to remember.
Yeah, I was going to also say, Ruby had mentioned like friends going out on the weekend. And I don't know if anyone, listening to this experience what I'm about to say, but like when you get together with friends or family and you're on some sort of, whether it's like a meal plan or, some sort of goal macro wise, and you get together with that family member or friends and you feel guilty because you don't participate in whatever they're doing, it can be very difficult. And I used to have a group of friends actually back in high school that drink all the time. They drink all the time, and it was on the weekends, and they would just get drunk. And for me, I just never really was into that. Not for any sort of health purpose. I just literally I thought beer tastes like piss. That was like the reason I didn't drink it. And for a while there, I was getting invited to the parties, just hanging out, just wanted to be with, just to be there. And at some point, eventually that friend group, we parted ways. And now, today, I've always been health conscious and have always been into fitness. And now I have a group of friends who are the same way, and they completely support my goals. They completely don't make me feel awkward, don't make me feel weird. And the point I'm trying to make is that if you allow for, like Ruby had mentioned, like you're hanging out with the same friends every weekend and you make that excuse, like, oh, I was hanging out with my friends, I couldn't, stick to protocol, whatever it is. That's a form of transference. Like you're transferring your, I guess, feelings onto your friends, right? Like that's your friends should support you. Like they should be able to say, yeah, Ruby or Kenny or, whatever, do your thing. That's totally fine. Like they shouldn't make you feel like you can't do what you need to do. And if that's the case, then maybe you should probably, look at a different circle, because that's not, good, right? Your friends should be supportive in what you do, unless obviously you're harming yourself, which you're not. You're trying to better your health. But I do remember that distinctly when I was, going through high school, where it was very awkward and difficult to stick to my, personal goals at the time, and it ultimately led me to become better. Even though it was very hard to do at the time. I lost, they were my best friends. I had lost my best friends at the time. But now, my best friends are much better today than they were back then. But again, going through hard shit makes you a better person. And especially, if you're trying to better your health, I mean, that's super important. Like that's something that's going to stick with you for the rest of your life. And you want to make sure you prioritize that.
I want to talk about the health part later, but I actually want to bring in another analogy with the school thing as well. Not really an analogy, but my story. I went to an academically selective high school, and because I was surrounded around people who loved studying and doing all that kind of stuff, I was able to get myself straight into a master's degree right after high school. Like I didn't even have to work my way through a bachelor to get into a master's degree. I got that because the friends group that I was in were the ones that were always competing with each other to who could get the highest. Garrett had a lot of mental repercussions on me, or this perfectionist mentality and never feeling good enough, which lingered with me for years. And I still have remnants of it now, but that's it. That is the environment I was around. Whereas there were we used to call them the white kids, even though I'm like, because I like my school is full of like, my friend circle were more like the European, Asian, Indian culture. They were like my friend circle. But then there were the mountains kids that came from like the Blue Mountains area, which is the complete opposite direction to where I live. And they were the ones that always used to just like be social and go out, be idiots. And while there were a couple of people that were really just smart off the bat, you could tell the difference between who our friends group were. And this is where it comes with the like living with the rooster analogy. Like it's just like, you don't even think twice about the behaviors that you're doing or what's around you. It's living with that rooster. And it's the same when you come into the lifestyle of, this is the way that I am, and you do it for a few years to know why it's not even about knowing why you do it. It's just what you do. You can't imagine the alternate. But going back to the friends, I went out with like a group of friends a couple of years ago before this whole bullshit happened. And we went to the lake and we stayed there for like 3 nights. They're all drinkers. They were completely toasted one night. I was the designated driver. They had crisps and chocolates and all this shit everywhere. And I only remember having like a few salt and vinegar chips here and there, like not even much, like about 1 handful one day and then 1 handful one night. And that was it, because I wanted my own food. Like, I wanted to feel good. I wanted to feel good when I woke up. I didn't want to have a shit stomach. I didn't want to not be able to shit. Like just to put it out there, because we're going to be talking about health. Like, I didn't want that, because I know how I feel when I cannot go to the toilet and do a number 2. Like, it is the worst feeling in the world. And a lot of you people listening to this can relate to constipation, can relate to feeling shit in the stomach. It ruins your day. It makes you feel like you are fat. It makes you feel like you have the worst body in the world. Like, I am worse on my body image when my digestion isn't good, because it's like all your emotions are in how good your gut health is. And no one talks about it enough. But when I wake up feeling bloated, I feel like shit, but I get my shit done anyway. It's just like, I'm not going to wear my fluoro pants because I feel like I'm a big elephant, but I know that it's just this. Like, that's the thing. I know that it's just this, and I'm going to move past it. It's part of the process. And I was able to do that because it was living with the rooster. And this is something Sarah wanted to talk about, so I'll lead into it. It's easy for me to do that. And if I was dieting, it's easy for me to say no to a lot of things if I had to. Why? Because I don't go into a diet with the mindset of, I'm going to be on 1,200 calories for the rest of my life. Like, no, dieting is not forever. Calorie deficits aren't forever. They should not be forever. And they are definitely not what you need to get that goal body.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that's so hard, especially right now. Like, I've been going through a hormonal healing process for the last 8 or 9 months. I think I'm going on a year. Just kidding. I'm going on a year of
with Ellen.
Yeah, next month of this hormonal healing journey where I've literally gained 20 pounds, and I have just done what my coach has told me to do, because I know that that's necessary in order to get to where I want to be. And it's been so hard, and it hasn't been easy in the slightest, but I continue to show up every day because I know that that's what's going to get me to my end goal. And I would say the last several weeks have been tremendously hard, just because we've moved into a different kind of phase. And the fact I have been, and I do not 100%, like, this is for me, this is for like what I'm going through. Like, my blood glucose was through the roof, but I have a very strict type of diet that I'm doing right now to get that regulated and to sync up my hormones again. And I've been fasting for 2 days. A very different kind. I don't mean fasting like completely. I have a very modified fast, but it's probably been the hardest thing that I've ever done. But I haven't broken it, because I know that this is going to get me to where I want to be, and it's only temporary. So when you're in a caloric deficit and you're working through those things with nutrition, or you're trying to move towards a goal, like continuing to show up and do the things that are necessary to get you there, like, you can't just say, oh, well, I'm just going to throw it away because whatever, I'm over it. And then you start over again. And that's why you end up in the same boat that you are all the time, because you can't be consistent with one thing. You can't keep showing up and continuing to put your best foot forward and being adherent to your protocol. There's a reason as coaches that we give protocols, right? There's a reason for that, because we're trying to get your body to the place that we're either trying to get your body to respond to begin with, we're pulling you out of a caloric deficit, we're trying to get your hormones and your health back in order, or C, we're going through a fat loss phase and your adherence is necessary. If you want to get to that end goal, being in a caloric deficit and being adherent to that is important. Now, I say deficit, with a grain of salt, because I think a lot of people misconstrue that, which is probably going to lead us into the next topic. But before we get into that, I just wanted to say that the consistency and the adherence, like, if you want results, you have to adhere. You can't like Kenny and I both live by the 80-20 rule, and we would never expect our clients to not live the way that we're living, right? We would never expect someone to be 100% on 100% of the time. That's definitely not what we expect as coaches, but 80% consistency over a long period of time can bring you so many results that you're missing out on if you are not being adherent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, it's funny when you start to take the actions towards your goals, and I think you quickly can realize whether you want it or not. So for example, you may say you want something, but then when you start taking the action steps to do it, and not to say that, Sarah and I are it's the only way to do what we're doing, right? There's many ways to do it. But if you start taking these action steps and you start to say, not want to do it, or, whatever reason may be, you have to ask yourself, is this something you actually do want? Because whatever it is, whether it's a business goal, a fitness goal, whatever it is, it does require work. It does require getting into the trenches and really just pushing hard shit. And again, the 80-20 rule applies, right? But I remember when I was a cyclist before I started lifting. And I remember I saw Lance Armstrong on the TV, and I was like, I want to be like this guy, got a bike. And then I tried riding my bike, and it was the hardest shit I've ever done. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to throw up a lung. I cannot do this. And my bike sat in my room for like 3 months, and I didn't do it. And my dad kept asking me, like, are you going to ride? Are you going to ride? Are you going to ride? And I said, maybe, I don't know. Because I got my ass kicked by like a 55-year-old on a bike, and I was only 18 years old, and it was embarrassing. But one day I thought, okay, well, I do want this, and I'm going to go for it. And so what happened?
You said something really good. Take note of that part. Like, why was it that he did not get his ass onto that bike? It was because of something that scarred him ages ago. And this is where you really need to get real with yourself, because when you start a diet, or when I say start a diet, I mean physically start the diet, not mentally start the diet, because you're not mentally in a place to do it. It's like you're saying, actually not even physically, you're verbally starting a diet. That's better. When you're verbally starting a diet, you're not fully committing to everything you need to do, because the last thing you know is, this is how I felt. I felt like trash. This. I had to give this up. There was this hunger. And all these things linger with you, which is why you still have emotional eating issues. You still have freaking issues with your food. All these different things still linger with you because of your past experiences. So like we announced at the very start of this thing, you need to unlearn all of that by realizing there is a different way. There is a different way, and there is more to eating less. There is more to doing more, and getting toned has nothing to do with a calorie deficit. Losing weight is the worst thing you want to do. You want to lose fat. You want to lose fat and look better because it brings something to you. But saying, oh, it's just that I lost weight really fast when I was just focused on cutting my food. Yeah, well, that works until it doesn't. And then what? And I'm getting so animated here because it's something that I see every single day. And I know that Kenny and Sarah see it too, because it's everywhere. You say, oh, but I had a client where I did a protocol where the initial phase was just the nutrition, and then it was to bring in everything else. But in that interim, Christmas happened and her mindset wasn't in the right place. So then she went and just could not control her weekends and her drinking. But now that she's back on track, she's not drinking anymore. She is back on track to do the right things to get her to where she needs to be. But the focus is still on the same shit. She hasn't unlearned the fact that it's not just about losing weight. Your body is changing. You're getting stronger. You're actually training now. And to bring that in, training properly for the first time ever, or training for the first time ever, brings with it the fact that you may not see changes physically on the scale or numerically, but you are going to feel better. And this brings us to the fact of Kenny's bike. As soon as you actually flip your mindset and get your ass in gear and realize it's not going to be the same thing as your old stories anymore, you can go for that ride. How was that ride, Kenny?
Oh, it was it was excellent. Actually, it was great. Because the first time I ever went out, this guy, it was funny because I was a basketball player and I was not in the greatest shape. And I was kind of chubs. And so when I got on the bike for the first time, with these people that were riding bikes, all the time, I actually got called, someone said, oh, you're a little big for riding a bike. And then during the same ride, there was a hill, and this is where this old guy decided, I don't want to say old, but like he's, he was older than me at the time. He sprinted up, and I tried to, keep up with him, and he just looked back at me and laughed. And I was so embarrassed because I was just, I already got called fat on the bike by this group of people. And so, yeah, 3 months went by, and I thought, I can't go back because it's going to happen again. Right. And the mindset switch was that, well, I either get better by doing something, or I just sit here and let the bike just kind of sit in my room doing nothing. And I could just continuously wish and wish that I could get better at the bike. And so one day I just went back, and yeah, I got my ass kicked over and over and over again until I didn't. And then next thing you know, I'm, doing really well with the bike. But the mindset was initially to first, I'm not gonna lie, to beat the older guy that beat me. I wanted to beat him on a uphill battle. And then the second, part became more intrinsic. Like, I really enjoyed cycling. I really enjoyed the process, and it became part of my life. And similar to like a fitness goal, like, the gym or nutrition, in the very beginning, when you have to change your lifestyle, like let's say you're eating junk food, or, perhaps you're eating too little, and then now you're making the transition to eating more food. And there's an inherent fear of eating more food because you're going to gain weight. Like, looking at the new changes from a surface level can be very deterrent of what actually is happening, right? Like, if you were to go a little bit deeper than the surface level fears and kind of understand, like, why am I doing this? Like, what is this going to do for me? Right? Like, for example, if you take the time to learn about your body, like your metabolism, it's adaptive. You don't want to be in a deficit forever because you're going to slow it down. And this is where you get into hormonal dysfunction potentially, right? But if you were to say, food is energy, and I need food to not only survive, but also thrive. Like, for example, if you want to go out with your friends, or you want to go out with your husband or wife, or whatever it may be, you can enjoy that time out. It becomes different. It becomes a new level of enjoyment, right? Because at the same time, you're enhancing your life, but you're also enhancing your understanding of your actions. There's more clarity involved. Like, when I was on that bike, the only thing I wanted to do was be like Lance Armstrong. It was very surface level. There was no clarity as to why I wanted to do the cycling beyond that. And then once I committed myself and started cycling more and more, there was more clarity as to why I actually loved it, and why I stuck with it, and why I became really good at it. And then same thing happened with the gym. Same thing happened with the nutrition. In the very beginning of anything new, there's going to be a lack of clarity. Like, you have to allow yourself to naturally and organically grow into your new actions. Otherwise, you're missing the whole beautiful thing of growing.
I actually love how you brought it into the fact of eating more, because it's so true that when people fear the idea of not dieting anymore because they're scared of going back to the way they used to be. But the difference is, in that time that has passed, you have grown, you have learned what not to do now. You have learned what doesn't work for you. Like, there is so much growth that happened in that process if you allowed it to happen. And if you didn't, you need to slow down and actually reflect on it and realize that there are parts of that you want to keep, and parts of that you want to just not do anymore because it didn't serve you. But especially if you have a coach in this process, which Kenny touched on before, but he didn't mention the coach in it. It's like, if you've been doing the same shit that isn't working, and if you think you're doing all the things, maybe you will actually make the whole learning new things and unlearning old things a lot easier if you had a coach on board with you to help you with that process, to be that mentor for you, to be that guide for you. Because then it's not going to feel like friggin' Kenny on a bike going uphill. It's going to feel a lot more level surfaced, and you're going to be on an even playing field to speed up that process. And then you're going to actually start to fall in love with it and not want to finish it, because all you can see is the fact that this is a journey of improvements. It's a journey of getting better. And I really wanted to talk on exactly how muscle plays into this thing, because it's something people don't realize, but how you are training, that plays into all of this as well. It's not just about, like, at first, yeah, it's just going there to make sure you're getting there. But then as soon as you get to a point, you need to actually start to realize it's not just about the weight on the bar. It's just not about moving that weight on the bar from point A to point B. There's a whole lot more to training, and there's a whole lot more to program design than meets your eye. So take that away.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think it's how you lift the weight. It's not the weight. Weight is all relative. I know Kenny loves saying weight is relative. Weight is relative.
Yeah, I do.
I'm like, okay, but you're lifting 315 and I can barely, lift my body weight. But weight is all relative. If you're going in there and you're, swinging weights around for high reps, but you're not really, putting the tension where it's intended to be, you're not going to see much progress. I used to do that all the time. I would go into the gym and do 60 fucking reps, excuse my language, on the freaking tricep extension and wonder why I wasn't making progress. Well, first of all, the fact that I was able to do 60 reps is a problem. I wasn't lifting heavy enough, obviously, right? And I wasn't targeting the muscle that I was intending to target. I was just going through the motions. I was just checking a box. Like, the intent behind your lift matters. How you lift the weight matters. How much you're pushing yourself matters. It's not just about counting 12 reps and being, done. I like to say that I don't count reps to be done. I count reps to know how many I'm doing to make sure that I continue to apply progressive overload. You do not count reps to be finished. You count reps to know that you're, continuing to make progress, that you're recovering, that you're continuing to increase the weights over time or increase the tension over time or the time under tension. That's why you count reps. I think that's a common misconception. You don't count reps to be done.
I love that so much, just because when you get a rep range, you count reps to be within that rep range, but it's not to be done. If you find yourself going over, if it's a 10 to 12, if you find yourself easily going over that 12, you're not counting to be done, but you're still going. Maybe it's time you start upping that weight and making it so you fail within that 10 to 12. And if you can actually keep going until 15, but then if you increase it, you only get to 8, keep the freaking 8 and then try to get up to 10 and 12. Like, you need to learn to push yourself. You need to learn to fail. And I fail more times than I can recall. Every single time, I watch my front squat fails over and over again, where I had to bail out of it, or my back squat where I'm in the hole and then I just had to bail and jump forward. Like, they're scary as shit bailing. But when you learn to fail, you become less scared of it and you start to embrace it in every other area of life. It is so applicable. You need to push past that point and not be scared of that soreness, because if you're doing freaking leg extensions, like, come on, if you're doing it properly and your knees in line with the pivot, which it's just you sitting in the seat properly, for those who don't understand that, you're not going to really have any other area to create injury. So you need to get real on whether your fear is real or not and push past that point. And if you think that your form is off, take a video of it, send it to your coach. Take a video of it, find a proper video of someone showing you how to do it, and compare it if you don't have a coach. Not the same thing, but it's still the thing. Like, even if I had a coach, that's pretty much the way that I do it, because I want to make sure that I have something decent to send my coach, so then I can actually get proper feedback from my coach instead of the stupidest little things that don't really make a difference, because I'm not providing my coach something good enough to show him. Whereas now it's just like, I just do it and I watch over my own lifts because I'm more proficient at it. I just need the program there to follow. And that's all I do. I get delivered my program, I follow it, I video my lifts, I look at it. Cool, I'm doing this. I need to fix this. You become proficient at that, like the rooster.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, there's an increasing trend with trying to find what's the most optimal exercise, right? Like, what's the most optimal for your back? What's the most optimal for your biceps, whatever it is. And that's it's very cool to see that. It's very cool to see that there's interest in trying to find the most optimal, form or exercise for a body part. But the pathway of your limb, whatever you're going to, exercise, is just one component of trying to build muscle, right? And building muscle is also one component of just trying to become healthier. Like, there's your mind muscle connection, how well can you contract that muscle? What's your strength like? There's a lot of things that go into this. So for example, if you nail the pathway, you nail the most optimal, range of motion possible, but your intensity is not there, then, your gains are only go so far. And not just that, but the desire to find the most optimal form of exercise can inadvertently lock you into a box. Like, for example, you can make it almost so science, at least for me. Like, I love science. Science is great, but there's also a little bit of, art involved with working out. And what I mean by that is you're trying to get, in tune with your own body. like you're literally moving your own body in space, trying to make it stronger. And if you get caught up in, okay, I can only perform these exercises because they're the most optimal, then you can rob yourself of potentially learning other ways to, benefit yourself. Innovation comes from sometimes doing things that are not optimal, right? Like things that were, considered trash could actually be something that's good. That might be a bad example, but
it's actually true though, because it's like, what's the intent behind it? Like, stop just dissing the way that someone does something if you don't know if there's a purpose behind it. Like my mentor and my coach, for example, he has these amazing rhythm squats. They're called Romanian rhythm squats, where you're literally just dropping with, like, there are different